CNN's been headlining a story on Donald Trump that alleges that Russia has accumulated a dossier of incriminating evidence against him.
The nation's top intelligence officials provided information to President-elect Donald Trump and to President Barack Obama last week about claims of Russian efforts to compromise President-elect Trump.
That story was picked up by BuzzFeed News. Ilya Petrenko joined me a little earlier to explain more about that.
Well, it sounds like such a juicy thing, news that could wake you up, an unbelievable story. The FSB, Russia's secret agents that are meant to be Donald Trump's friends, now compromising him while he was in Moscow, and they're saying that it is sufficient enough to be able to blackmail him later. It is in the news, on TV, the likes of CNN are running it first story, but hold on, there are disclaimers and tags unverified all over the place.
The FBI has not confirmed many essential details. They have not established the veracity, but they are taking a look. We cannot confirm.
It's a very sensitive investigation, obviously. We don't know whether it includes who it includes.
What we know is that the top intelligence officials of this nation provided some information that they believe came from a credible source.
So if you say or write the word unconfirmed, technically no one's going to blame you for producing fake news. But just take a look at how the BuzzFeed gets into the story. Explosive, but unverified. And actually, some of the things that were in that report are so ludicrous that I'm not even going to go through it. You can go on the BuzzFeed website to read the whole document. That PDF file, which is claimed to have been put together by a former British intelligence official. But this really brings us to the issue of professionalism in journalism, because really, you know, journalists do, at the end of the day, have to choose which stories to report on and which stories not to report on. Because if we go back to this Pizzagate conspiracy, for example, of course, the headline that says that the Democratic National Convention was somehow involved in sex trafficking through a chain of restaurants, that would have caught the viewers' attention ahead of Election Day in the U.S. But it sounds so ridiculous, doesn't it? So really, I think this latest Trump story, to me, that fits into more or less the same category.
Especially with unverified flying around, with all that clickbait doing the rounds. Any comment from Russia on this?
Well, the President Putin's administration, they've already responded to it. And Vladimir Putin's spokesperson said that believing that this document is real, believing that what's in it is real, is absolutely insane, he says.
This is a clear attempt to harm our bilateral relations. The quality of the declassified part of the previous report into hacking and of this fake is on the same level. Pulp fiction, this is how it's called in English. Well, we should probably react to this with the same kind of humor.
The president-elect, Donald Trump, has already bashed the report, no surprise, in a tweet in capital letters. We understand that he is upset when he does that in capital letters. He said fake news and a total political witch hunt. The WikiLeaks also tweeted about this in lowercase, though. They're saying that the report has no credibility whatsoever. It is not an intelligence report, full stop.
So, Ilya, if this has been kicking around for a while now, how come it's only just swirling up into the public domain now?
Well, you know, the first time it was published was back in October, but back then it really didn't grab that much attention. There you can see it, October 31st. Well, the second time when this really is being picked up by everyone is happening when Trump's inauguration is just around the corner, and also just before his biggest news conference after he won. So how's that for timing?
Right, so let's now get some reaction. We'll bring in Adam Gary, who's author at the website theduran.com, an alternative news outlet. Adam, good to see you on the programme. Let's just go back to what Ilya was saying a minute ago. This Trump story broke with those words, explosive but unverified. So why would a respected, venerated media organisations of the likes of CNN and The Guardian run with such a thing when unverified is in there so prominently?
Well, for two reasons. First of all, standards have slipped and they were already pretty low. And the second reason is because their agenda has increased and they're treating news as just an outlet to forward their agenda. They can't really be called a real news outlet. They ought to be called the paparazzi, because that's all it is. The Clinton News Network is what they called it. And anti-Trump story after unverified anti-Trump story, it's now quite clear why they got that moniker.
But we've got fake news doing the rounds. It's a concern for viewers, listeners, newspaper readers. With that going on, what's the thinking then here, going with unverified stories? Are they just afraid of being left behind on the clickbait?
Essentially, yeah. They're providing entertainment that has an agenda behind it. They're not really being serious, and increasingly fewer members of the public are taking these kinds of stories seriously. I think, moreover, what this represents is a kind of Tet offensive moment in the war against fake news. People will remember that in 1968, the U.S. and their South Vietnamese allies won a monumental military victory, but it came at such a cost that it killed the credibility of the pro-war parties in Washington, and it had the effect of turning people against the war. I think that this story, this perverse, disgusting and fake allegation, may have that same effect, whereby even people who don't generally question more are now going to flick off CNN, and BuzzFeed, I think, may not be around this time next year because of this.
Well, does the timing smell a bit fishy to you? Last October, the media minnows were talking about this document doing the rounds. Now the big hitters are taking it up. Does timing strike you as odd in any way?
Absolutely. I've written quite a lot about Operation Sabotage, whereby Obama is trying to do everything he can to make the transition from him to Trump difficult, and he's doing it with a little help from his friends in the fake stream media. And so they want to try to derail the confidence of the American people in Donald Trump just weeks before the election, 10 days now, what is it, before the inauguration. And I don't think it's going to work. So far, everything else that they've tried has backfired. Trump is speaking directly to people through Twitter. WikiLeaks are now much more trusted than the U.S. intelligence agencies, and alternative news sources are now more trusted than CNN. So I think that they're trying to derail the Trump train before the 20th, but I think that it's full speed ahead.
We saw Trump's reaction earlier on. You can tell he was angry because he did it in capital letters, as he's wont to do when he's pretty miffed about something. He called it fake news, called it a political witch hunt. The relationship that Trump's had with the mainstream media, it's never been good, has it, Adam? Is it going to get worse?
I think it's going to get worse, but as Vladimir Lenin said, the worse the better. Trump thrives on this. It's one of the reasons that he once saying, look at me, I'm an outsider, I'm here with my Twitter and my Facebook, and I'm more influential on public opinion, I'm more straight talking than all these fake news outlets from their ivory towers, even though he knows something about an ivory tower himself. But I think that Trump is going to take this, he's going to run with it, and beyond the media implications, there are legal implications. I wouldn't be surprised if once he's in power, Trump instructs his attorney general to look at the possibility of taking actions against libelous fake news outlets. He wants revenge, he may get it.
And I wonder in a couple of hours when the journalists are going to be facing President-elect Trump in his first big press conference since he won that election. I wonder what the atmosphere is going to be like there in a couple of hours. For now, though, Adam, Gary, thanks very much.